All right, so my next order of business is to take care of these transmission mounts. When I put them in originally, I didn't leave any space at all whatsoever for room between the two so I can put the mount in. The mount, I mean, there's room for the mount, but there's zero room for any kind of paint or any finish work or anything like that. So I want to put those in and put a spacer on each side of the bolt so it'll give me ample clearance to bolt the cross member in. So just make it easier to assemble. Plus, obviously, you can see I've got a lot of stuff I need to do underneath this car and finish it. A lot of welds to grind and stuff like that. But once I get done with the top side, I'm going to try to get the car up in the air or do a tip jig or something like that and get this bottom side finished up. And I'll get it seam sealed and undercoated and all that. So in the meantime, it's going to look like poop. But it's part of the process when you're doing a home garage. It is what it is. All that wiring is going to go up, and that's part of the motor and stuff like that. It goes up through the transmission tunnel right through there, and up into the engine, O2 sensors and things of that nature. So, and transmission control. But yep, we'll get started on that. And we'll let's see. Probably end up cutting those off. They're clearly marked with weld, so I'll figure out a way to probably lift the transmission cross member up in place with a jack and just wedge it in there, and then cut those tabs off and weld them in place. But it's gonna be hard to video, so bear with me. All right, welcome guys. Welcome back to the shop. It's a new day, and today I have a new plan of attack. Today's plan is to work on this transmission cross member. I really never liked this setup. This design is super heavy. I mean, super heavy. It's heavy, but it's kind of cumbersome and awkward to put in. Obviously, transmission and all the transfer case and all that has to be in before you put a mount in. But it's the way it's designed to go up and over the front drive shaft. I feel like I can simplify this and do a straight bar and some brackets on the frame that it bolts to, and just make it a little easier. Plus, if I go below this fella here, if I go below the front drive shaft, it'll help. My thought is this is probably the lowest part of the car, transfer case wise. So if I put this in front of it, it might serve as a little protection. I mean, I'm not really looking to smack stuff. The car's not that low, but just thinking out loud really is all I'm thinking about here, is trying to get, if I go right below the front drive shaft, then I won't have to worry about anything as far as that clearancing it, hitting it, if anything pivots or moves, which I know this doesn't pivot or move, but I don't know. I'm just simplify this transmission cross member and make it much more easy to get in, because I started yesterday. I cut the tabs off of one side on the frame, and I was going to space them out, and I got to thinking about this cross member because it fell and hit my hand. I got a little pissy with it because it's heavy and awkward and cumbersome to put in. So I'm thinking, how can I make this a little easier? And so, of course, I've got a lot of work in that, and it's ugly to boot. It's under the car. I don't care, but it's hideous, and I want to get rid of it. So that's what I'm on today. And I've got this piece of tube. I'm not even sure what size it is. Pretty beefy. First, so strength wise, I don't have a problem with it being strong. I took the rubber mount off the transmission adapter, transfer case adapter, so just a rubber isolator. I'm gonna make a plate to go off of that, and then I'm gonna figure out a way where I can weld it to this, and then get the distance off of that transmission cross member, because it works, and figure out it'll fit between the frame rails. So I've got my distance there, and I'll just make some sort of a bracket or something. Thinking maybe an L shape, bolt it from the bottom and bolt it from the sides. Maybe I can put some nutserts in the frame, and I think 4 bolts on each side will be more than plenty of strong. So I'm going to go from that, and if I come up with a new plan of attack or see something that pops into my head that maybe a different style mount, that's what I'll go with. But so I think since the frame rail is a 2x3 box tubing, I'm just going to use a little L bracket. I kind of drew it up here, and I kind of drew up my idea here. It's just same kind of stuff you can see off of speedway motors, stuff like that. So I'm just going to do a little L bracket and run some zip nuts in the frame rail, and then run some bolts in that, so the whole cross member just drops straight down. And then I'll do a flat plate here and kind of do some gussets on the side of that. I'm not sure I'm going to need to put a bend in the pipe, so I think straight across will be just fine. And matter of fact, I can move it back a little bit, and it'll go underneath uh, the transmission cross member, or it'll go underneath the drive shaft. So I think that'll work. But let's get to it. It's enough rambling. Let's just start cutting some metal. All right, let's see if I can find the shape of this pipe and about how far I want to go in on there. So I found the center of the pipe, center of my bracket, and now I've got the diameter of the pipe there. And we'll line that up and see how well that works. Looks like it's going to be pretty much the whole thing hogged out there, but that's fine. And that'll put the back of this plate alongside this line here, which is kind of where I eyeballed where I want the transmission to be, this bracket to be for the transmission. So let me get that traced out on both sides, and try to figure out how to cut it. I'm gonna drill a series of holes, old school way, and I don't think I can get it in the bandsaw and cut on this side because it's just not tall enough. So, I don't think that little bow saw will do it either. I think it's just too weak. No, at least not the whole thing. That'll be easy if I do it like that. like that. It's weldable. Let me take a little bit more out of that. The most accurate thing in the world. Pretty darn good. I'll weld these holes up too while I'm at it. Alright, so my template, let me move this pipe so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. Hopefully it doesn't catch on fire. This was from the back edge of this line I put on this pipe. So that should be where the mount lands. Still a little one. So I'm going to mark that. Get it centered up here. And we'll mark that, and mark that, and we'll drill those out. Pilot drill bit, and I'll step it up. From center. This will work. I guess I have my paper in the wrong spot. Make sure you wear your safety Crocs too for metal shavings and stuff like that. Alright, let me bolt this up. I think those holes are big enough. I'm about to find out. Alright, with the new cross member bolted up, the new cross member tied to the mount, I feel like it's still a little too close to this. So what I may do is cut a notch out of the pipe and weld a little divot in there just for this. It's kind of a unique situation. If I go forward, I'm not sure, because I don't have a drive shaft for one, but I'm not sure. I can't remember if it goes up or down. I'm pretty sure it kind of comes up a little, but I just don't want to take a chance since I'm putting it together outside the car. I don't want to take a chance and it be incorrect. Yeah, I mean, I could spend a couple hours putting everything back together and mocking it back up, but I feel pretty confident if I can notch this that way. It's just a small notch. I can take another piece of pipe and stick it in here. So coat, I guess flip it or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, let's do that. We'll get a mark on it and then we'll pull it back off. I don't know how I want to use this to make my filler notch. Ouch. Something like that. And they slice that and hammer that down so that it doesn't just drop. Kind of and that'll help me fill that gap too. There's a pretty good sized gap in here. I'm going to cut it here and here and bring that in. So let's do that. All right, so I went a little further out and cut some notches in the ends of the pipe there so that I can help fill the gaps on the end, but also kind of transition this a little better and get it to sweep in there. Gap's still a little bit big, but I think I can make that work, and that'll be a pretty cool notch once obviously I'll clean it up and get it to just a swoop instead of a jagged cut. So put a couple tacks in it. Nailed it. Now we grind it. I'm pretty happy with the little notch there, a little step down notch, and that will go underneath that flange for the front drive shaft. So we'll bolt it back on, and let's cross our fingers and see if we did this right. All right, so I know that'll work. I can put my hand underneath that without touching. So that'll be more than enough clearance. And it's bolted up nice and tight. Not as flush. I can still wiggle it, but it's okay. Yeah, so now we got to figure out the ends here. Probably just like I said, I'm going to run a 90 on it. Bolt it from the bottom and then this way. I think 4 bolts on each side will be plenty. Got to see what size rib nuts I have. I'm hoping I have some bigger than quarter 20s because I don't want to put quarter 20s for a transmission mount. Let's see what we got. Let me get this measurement across here. Get it from the frame side, and then I'll get some 90s cut up, and let's see what we come up with. I found a piece of 2x3 tubing that I've had left over, and what I'm going to do is use a chunk here and cut it here and cut on the other side down there, and I'll have 2 90s that I think will work just fine. And I'll weld that guy to that, and this will catch the bottom of the rail, and this will catch the side of the rail. And I can put some bolts in here and in here, and 4 on each side. I think it'll be plenty strong enough. So I'm going to figure out how much I want to cut off of this and go from there. I think a 4-inch chunk will be plenty. Might be a little overkill, but that'll give me a little room to get in there and turn the bolts. Instead of having the bolt up top corner there, I can have it out here a little bit and be able to get to it. Yeah, we'll do a 4-inch piece. I like even numbers. You can find the center a lot easier. Well, I like even numbers. You can find the center pretty quick. Just my own preference. So we'll cut that. And I'll cut on the bottom side of that one. If I cut straight and strategically enough, I won't have to use any more material. I can just use this end and be good. Cut there, and we'll cut here. I'll probably end up cutting that off too, just because of that corner there, that edge that's rounded over. It's not gonna want to sit flush with the frame. Do that. Flip it over one more again. I'll do the same thing here. So we'll get rid of this little piece there, and I'll have two brackets. And I don't have to do any bending, just some drilling and welding. We get another disc. I also found some rib nuts that'll fit these larger bolts and be plenty strong. So 4 of those per side rib nut the frame rail. I think it'll be a much better mount and just cleaner too. So which is what I was after. A little warm. Imagine that. All right, we'll stick these in the sandblaster real quick and get them nice and shiny. All right, so I went ahead and marked the cut line that I want for both ends there. And that's the width of the cross member. And we'll go ahead and slice those off and see if it'll fit. The only problem with this welding it out here is I don't know where these need to be as far as this, raises and lowers the mount on the frame. So unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to put the transmission back in the car and bolt it all together and slide it in there and see how it fits. I went in under the car there. It was hard to film because, I mean, it's right up against my face. I sat down in here and cut the brackets off the original transmission mount. So now I'm going to install this transmission and motor combination. Cut the original transmission mount off, smoothed up the frame. It was very tight quarters, so I wasn't able to film any of that. But I've got a blank canvas now for my new mount, so I'm going to put the motor and transmission and transfer case in, get a jack underneath the back end, go ahead and bolt everything down, and try to place the crossmember, the new crossmember I built, in there, and see what kind of room I'm working with. I'm hoping I made all my cuts right, so I can just slide the brackets in there and mark it, pull it all down, and bolt it in. I don't see a need to pull the motor and trans out again right this second. I do. Obviously, I've still got a lot of body work to do under the engine compartment, but it's pretty good. Um, it's pretty close. What I want to do is put a ring around where I cut the opening in for the air filter. I want to do a metal ring around it like I did the hood hinges, so that it blends up and kind of rolls over a soft edge instead of just a hard cut opening like that. But what I probably should do, I want to do that first before I get the engine and trans in. That way I can grind that off, weld that all together, and then get under the car and get the welding. Because if I don't do that, it's going to be difficult for me to get in there with a grinder and cut off wheel and all that good stuff. So let me change gears for just a second, and we'll reevaluate what we got going on here. So we're going to trace around. I got a little piece of paper here behind the fender. I'll trace around it and get a pattern. And I'm going to bend some of that round stock that I have with this pattern, with the help from this pattern. I need to get it a little tighter than that. It's a little loose piece, so I'm going to weld it back in because I needed the hole to go down. Unfortunately, I cut a little bit more than I should have, and it's going to be a little bit of a booger to put back in, but it'll go. So get this pattern cut, go ahead and grind all the paint off of this area, and prep that rod, and we'll get ready to start welding here. The basic shape of the intake hole for the intake tube, hole in the fender well for the intake tube. I'm going to use this round stock that I have. I'll go ahead and get it in. Need to grind it real quick. All right, round stock cleaned up. Let's start shaping this. You start at where the flat is. I'm just going to mark it and eyeball the bend. Pretty self-explanatory. There you go. So far, that's what I've got. Went ahead and welded the filler panel in here back in place, and I'm just kind of shaping this to the hole. I'm going to back up and see. I'm pretty happy with that shape. Still got a little manipulating to do on the top corner and get that kind of more rounded like this. It's really close, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'll go ahead and do a little more hammering and get some welding done to it, and I'll bring you back here when I get it shaped up, finalized. I got the motor and trans in, kicked my butt, but I'm getting better at it. So I had to take the transfer case off. It will not go in the engine compartment through the tunnel into the car, so it's going to come in from the bottom, which is fine. It's not in my way or not something I need to worry about measuring right now. I cleared this pipe. I clearanced the pipe already, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to put the transmission mount back in. Get all this stuff in the way. Tried to get everything I needed so I wouldn't have to get back up and down. and back and forth to the workbench. I need to be like a contortionist sometime. What to do with this? I have to come down with another piece of some tubing and just drop the bracket, drop the tubing in, come over like that. Oh, no problem with that. Let's see. Try to put this bolt in here. Yeah. Now, I'm pretty sure that's how I have that. Oops. All right. I do like that way that crossmember bolts in better though. So I'm not too concerned with having to build some tubes down here. I can kind of angle them so that it's a soft instead of a right down to it. It just look better. I need to find some more of that tubing though. I hope I got some more. Some sort of a bracket, the tubing, and go that way. To come just about straight down because of the way the transfer case, the yoke is right here. That little bend that I put in it starts about right here. So this side's going to be pretty much straight up, and can't come this way. It'll be right in front of the yoke. So the other side will be just about there. So I can always kind of curve this off. I have to go on the bottom of that bracket a little bit. Kind of go right into it. Let's go to the passenger side. Yeah. Get that light out of my eyes, and so y'all can see too, like that. See, on this side, I can come down however I want. Let's see, that's frame, and here's the top of the pipe. Let's go to the table and let's see what mess we got to make here. After a few minutes of scratching my head, I took some measurements of the car from the floor to the bottom of the transmission cross member, and I transferred them to my table here. I know I've got a part of the box tubing that I use for the frame, so I went ahead and laid it on the table and drew it out. Started with that, came down from my measurements, went over here the distance that I measured crossways and did the same thing, and I laid it out on the table and marked it out. And that way now, passenger side is wherever I want it. The exhaust is on the other side of the frame, doesn't matter where. And I can come in at an angle like that. This side is the part that's going to almost have to go straight down, according to my template here. So I'm going to cut the template out so that matches my marks I made under the car, surprisingly. So I do have quite a bit of tubing here I can play with and figure this out. So I was talking about having to make the mount cope around the frame and cope around the cross member, because that's about as close as I can get to where I start notching, which isn't bad. It's not terrible. I just was hoping I didn't have to come straight down like that. Give it a little shape. This makes it look a little better in my opinion. Passenger side, coping it up there. So I got my angle against the frame. And I can come down and blend that in and make it look nice. Try to figure that angle out so that I can I'll cut both pieces, the cross member and the tube here, at a V shape or something like that, make it look good. But I need to figure out my. I think I'm gonna cut this one first because this is a little more difficult with this shape around the frame. It's not really more difficult. It's just about the same. It's just a different angle. So I'm gonna lay that out, cut my template out, and cut it out of some paper and see how I like the angle. So I'm gonna do that, and I'll be right back. All right, so the transmission cross member is all done. This is the new one, version 2.0. It's a lot lighter, and I went ahead and fully welded it and stuck it in the sandblaster and hit it. Just clean all the debris and stuff off of it. I'm going to sand it and then hit it with some primer until I'm ready to paint it and coat it or whatever. I like to get all these loose parts off the car powder coated. That way they'll stay nice and clean for a long time. But I went ahead and drilled the holes in the frame and rib nutted those, and then be good to go. I think 4 bolts on each side will be more than enough to hold it, and if not, it'll just fall out. So we'll figure it out then. No, I'm just kidding. It's going to be more than enough to hold it. So we'll get this in, and we'll get moving on. So that's the new transmission mount in place. As you can see, I don't have these holes rib nutted because the car is too low from a rib nut tool to fit between the car and the ground. So I have to do those at a later time. But shoot, 2 bolts is plenty anyway. So there's 2 up here and 2 on the other side. And, it just looks a whole lot better, a lot simpler and just cleaner. So glad I redid that. It took a day of cutting and grinding and fiddling with it, but it's there. I got plenty of room between the frame. There's actually a little bit of a gap, but that's because I'm going to coat the frame and have that painted or coated or whatever. So just need to leave a little bit of room for that. It'll be fine, and it's nice and secure. So I think really I'm on the home stretch of modifications under the hood. As far as cutting metalwork and stuff like that. There's a little bit of grinding to do and some dressing up, but went ahead and welded around the hole here for the intake tube to go through and dress that up, and I'll come back over with a little filler and get that smoothed in so that'll match the contour I've got going on here around the hinges. The cover, the radiator cover that goes here, I'm still considering putting a flange here on the actual cover to run a bolt through there. That's a little minor little piece. I'm gonna wait and see how it fits because it bolts down pretty tight right here. I was just thinking I need a flange on it to maybe put a piece of felt to rub against so the painted surfaces don't rub each other and scuff the paint. Keep from squeaking and rattling too. But I may just trim the panel, tighten it up, and draw it out and tighten it up here, and get it and draw the line on it and just trim it until it stops touching. But I'd really rather have it tight. I think I would rather have it tight. I think that's the right way to do it. But not real sure. But we'll get there. I was going to wrap it up with this because I've got a lot of footage to go through and edit and make a video. Like I said, I got this guy cut out and welded in temporary. It's not completely welded because I'm not sure how that's going to change. I've got a transmission cooler that I wanted to mount behind this opening in the lower valance. So I've still got to make a mount for that. But I'm not sure if I want to permanently mount it yet, and I'd rather wait to see about getting the AC condenser, just because I want to make sure I got the room. But I'm going to have a grill mesh in here that'll match the grill opening mesh. So that'll be tidied up, and I'll paint it black so you can't see it. But all in all, I think moving along, had a pretty good bit of progress this week. And I appreciate you guys sticking around. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do all those cool things. But I appreciate you watching Big Lake Hot Rods, and we'll see you next time.